So Jay, tell us why you write.
Best explanation I ever heard was one of my professors who said, I write in order to learn what I think. In point of fact, you know, like Ken said, my parents read me stories. When I was 4 or 5, my mother taught me to write. I thought, in grammar school, I thought the stories of Dick and Jane and Sally and Puff and Spot were the very best stories ever. Dr. Seuss, Horton hatches an egg, I'm your guy. I love stories. When I grew up, I wanted to find a place to write. It turned out to be Flemington, New Jersey. Big surprise to me, but I came here to write, and I kept writing and stayed around. So this is a short piece about beginning as a newspaper reporter. It's called Rookie Reporter. Excuse me. It was published by Hippocampus, which is a group that helps writers in one of their compilations, one of their books. Rookie Reporter. Sorry. My phone rang, so I stopped typing and grabbed the receiver. Hello, may I help you? In my new job as a reporter, it seemed I was always asking that, or something very much like it. I hadn't known what to expect in working for a newspaper, but I hadn't expected this. I thought writers mostly wrote things. I had no idea they talked so much. We would leave the newsroom to attend municipal meetings, where almost anything might be voted into law, and sometimes we chased fire trucks. But otherwise, we were on the phone, talking with sources, asking questions, and taking notes. The whole idea was to quote people who knew what had happened, or better yet, those who knew what might happen next. At the Hunterdon County Democrat, a large weekly in rural New Jersey, and it was rural in those days, it was about half the population it is currently. There were, if my memory serves, there were about 500 dairy farms at that time in Hunterdon County, and you'd be hard pressed to find 6 today, probably. At the Hunterdon County Democrat, we talked with as many local folks as possible. The more the better. But access works both ways. People asked us questions too, subscribers and non-subscribers alike. Everyone in the county seemed to think we were a free public service of some kind, a glorified information booth. We tried to be helpful. It was good for circulation, if people thought we knew everything. And since I was the new kid on staff, our receptionist sent me any call that stumped her. One caller asked, when do we change the clocks back? Another said, I know trout season started in April, but when does it end? What's the capital of Paraguay? This last voice sounded like a little kid on the line. It was probably a prank. I asked the editor, Ed Mack, how much time and energy he wanted me to spend on such calls. If it has anything to do with Hunterdon, he said, it's a story idea. If one person's asking, hundreds more may be wondering the same thing. They're just too busy or too lazy to call. They're all our readers, or could be. They might find an article on the subject interesting. Okay, I said, but what if it's not about Hunterdon? What if it's about Paraguay? Ask questions. Find a local angle. Maybe the kid's aunt lives in Paraguay and is coming to visit. Maybe she's bringing him a llama. Or are llamas from Peru? Well, either way, an aunt from Paraguay is a good story. Might be a great photo. Learn enough to make a judgment call. If it's got anything to do with Hunterdon, write it up. Otherwise, give them the number for the reference desk at the public library. So, I wrote an article about when and why daylight saving time ends. I called the head janitor at the regional high school and asked how many clocks they had. How hard was it to get them all in sync when the time changed? He laughed and said, yes, it took quite a while to get all the clocks in agreement. But the worst impact on us is in transportation, he said. Parents forget to change their clocks at home and kids miss the bus. It's a mess. The transportation office confirmed it, and the supervisor begged for a big headline to remind parents. Ed Mack was glad to see a news angle. He assigned Dick Rollins, our staff photographer, to pose a janitor on a tall stepladder fiddling with the gymnasium clock. Since it was timely, Ed dummied the story for page 1. Always think of photos, he reminded me. Good job otherwise. Next, I called the state fish hatchery. I hadn't realized that it was nearly always trout season, except for a week each spring when tank trucks actually pour fish off bridges into streams below. The state considers it unsporting for lazy anglers to follow the trucks around and gather stunned trout. So the law gives the fish a few days to recover. By opening day, so many trout in so little water will bite at anything. Then, after the shoulder-to-shoulder first day flailers go back to mowing their lawns instead of casting bait into bushes, hatchery trucks sneak by to pour in more fish. These have a chance to survive. Some might even live to spawn. I liked talking to people and learning all this, and I was pleased when the sports editor used my fish piece as his lead story. But Ed Mack said I should have thought of a photo. He didn't care that no trucks were pouring fish at present. A good photo attracts the eye and makes a story sing, he said, mixing his metaphors. As for the capital of Paraguay, our encyclopedia said it's the city of Asuncion along the western border. Excuse me. The one Paraguay shares with Argentina. My caller was, in fact, a little kid, but it wasn't a prank. For homework, Miss Lockhart had asked her fourth graders to bring in cakes shaped like various nations. This boy's busy mom wanted to know where to dab icing for the capital city and how to spell it properly. Up to her elbows in frosting, she'd asked her son to call us. It was a compliment, really, just the sort of relationship we wanted with our readers. So I explained the location of the capital city and spelled it twice, slowly, taking extra care on how to slant the accent above the letter O. And I remembered about photos. That call turned into a prize-winning feature and photo layout, a whole broadsheet page. Smiling students and moms showing off their country-shaped cakes. The fourth graders hosted a party for the rest of the school. Class moms decorated the cafeteria. Students discussed their nations. And everyone ate cake with ice cream. Frosting and Frontiers began my caption for the front page picture that pointed inside to the photo spread and article, chock full of local names and faces. Miss Lockhart was so happy that later she came by the newsroom with half of Poland, all of Iceland, and about 2/3 of Bolivia. It was a colorful and a tasty surprise. We sent out for coffee and had an impromptu party in the composing room. Everybody loved Poland, which was carrot cake with cream cheese icing. Ed Mack said I was learning fast. I acted modest, but I knew he was right. I was getting lots of good ideas. For instance, that Miss Lockhart. Wow, if only I'd been a few years older.